Barnaby Jones will return next Thursday night at 10, 9 Central and Mountain on most of these stations.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Terrificon, Connecticut's biggest Comic Con, is back at the Mohegan Sun Expo Center in Uncasville, Connecticut on August 16th through the 18th. See your favorite stars from TV and film and shop for comic books, toys, and memorabilia. With top creators from Marvel and DC, costume contests with prizes, and so much more. Tickets on sale now at Terrificon.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. It's time for an edition of Scene Missing, where we talk about some of our favorite movies and some obscure movies sometimes. But today, I'm going to actually turn the background all black because we're talking about one of the greats, and that is, of course, one of the great heroes that really goes back to 1920. It's kind of crazy. But the great man himself, Zorro. And there's a great 70s example of Zorro that we'll be talking about. Frank Langella with hair. I'm not used to that. But, yeah, he had a fun TV movie. And a lot of these movies that we're going to talk about are available on YouTube. So, if even some of the real classics as well. But good to see Gabe Hardman. Good to see Ian Brill. Good to see Jeff Parker.
Yeah.
And are we all Zorro fans?
Of course. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and you're talking about how it goes back to 1920. I mean, for a long time, I was under the impression that Zorro was older than that. Like it was a classic on a level that it maybe wasn't. Like it's a pulp story. It's an early, it's a early 20th century pulp story. But
were you thinking of Scarlet Pimpernel? Maybe?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think and that's obviously what it's inspired by. And but although I think Zorro is a much more sort of egalitarian idea than the Scarlet Pimpernel, a guy going around saving rich people from the from the French Revolution. But and I think Zorro kind of turns that idea, even though it's still a lot about rich people. It still turns that idea around in a good way. I like Zorro.
It's been fun to see all the different, not only American versions of the story, but also, and we're going to talk about some of the foreign versions as well. And I think Zorro's universal. Amazon just did a Zorro show last year. Mm-hmm. That was pretty good.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I didn't get to that.
Who played Zorro? Who played Zorro, John?
Yeah, some Spanish actor. I can look up the details, but it was a Spanish production. I'm not sure if it was a Mexican production or a production from Spain, but and they also kind of messed with the mythos and added some ideas that, frankly, I'm like, that's not the Zorro story that I've heard for the 50 years I've been paying attention.
Although I think that all of these kind of mess with it to some degree. I mean, the 1975 one we're going to talk about is not particularly true to the way the story works at all. So,
it was a sequel. If you're talking about the French one that we're going to talk about,
the 75 one, the Alan Delon one,
not 74, which was Langella.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That was 74, right? So we'll be talking about this because this was kind of a sequel to Zorro, the Elaine and is it Alan? Because that I always
Elaine.
I've always heard French. Alan Delon, whatever.
Alan Delon, yeah.
I don't know the French. I don't know how to speak.
He's the rock star Zorro to me.
Yeah. And if people in the chat want to talk about Alex Toth's comic book Zorro, I'm fine with that. And some of Topps did a great Zorro series.
But we're not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, can we talk about it?
Are we? Can we?
I love it.
Like,
Of course we can.
we're comic book professionals. Should we be allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, but it seemed like we were leaning more towards the movie stuff. But no, whatever.
Sure,
I don't have any
sure.
images
But-
of the comic.
Look, we got a lot of movies here, so let's.
Are we going to
let's
go in
get to
order?
something.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah,
You wanna go in order?
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't know if anybody else did, but I'd seen it in the past, but I rewatched the Mark of Zorro.
Yeah, I watched a little bit too.
The Douglas Fairbanks movie, 1920. This is the only thing that exists at this point is the Curse of Capistrano story, which is which I also read.
Thank you.
Johnson Macaulay, and
Yep.
it's like and it is very much a pulp story. Like it has that kind of serialized pulp feeling where you're treading water a lot of time, but you could see the bones of how things work, and really like the Mark of Zorro movie is the closest one to the novel. Like it's the closest one as far as just the structure of the story and them being relatively faithful to it. I mean, they weren't, they didn't. I don't think there was anything that it wasn't like Zorro was some, institution at that point, right? It was just it's a story, and they're making a film out of it. And Fairbanks was, if you don't know him, he was a silent movie actor who was like he made comedic silent movies up until 1920. Like he was very athletic. That was a huge part of his persona. But the Mark of Zorro, the 1920 one, is the first movie released by United Artists. So like it was produced by him. United Artists was the company where D.W. Griffith and Fairbanks and
Mary Pickford.
And Chaplin came together, and
Right.
Some version of United Artists I think still exists, and certainly through the 70s, like a lot of those movies that are director-driven movies and everything were produced.
They're a division of MGM, and
I mean they're not what they were. What they were, it was initially intended to be these people having control over their films, and then it kind of morphed into a thing where they put together money, and you could, and let the director just go off and make their movie. But it was but it was the first Fairbanks movie where he was doing adventure stuff, right? Like he had always done kind of light comedic and romantic movies before that, and this was like the start of this run he had for 10 years of Three Musketeers and Robin Hood and
Don Juan, right? Didn't he do a Don Juan?
He did a Don Juan movie, but that was actually later. That was the last movie he did, and it was a talkie. The real run of adventure movies ends with The Iron Mask, which is like my favorite. Based on the Man of the Iron Mask, it's a sequel to his Three Musketeers movie, but it's also my favorite Fairbanks movie. I recently saw it in a theater for the first time, and just such an entertaining movie, such a kind of like solid, plotty, fun movie that's also kind of tragic and uplifting at the same time. But so highly recommend that. I do recommend the Mark of Zorro movie too, especially the last like 20 minutes of it, which is tons of great action stuff. One of the first kind of big action adventure movies.
And I think you got to mention it's directed by Ruben Mamoulian.
Well, no, that's the 1940 movie.
I was going to say, I didn't know. I was wondering if he directed both.
This is
Fred
Newblow.
I'm sorry. I was jumping onto your Mask of Zorro. Sorry.
So that's the 1941 Power. We got a lot of Zorros to cover here.
We'll get there.
Just have to get Mamoulian in there.
But and Mamoulian is great and totally worth talking about if anybody else saw that movie. But yeah, I'm a fan of this movie. Obviously, it's a movie from 1920. Features have not been around that long. We're still defining like how to show this stuff, and it is a lot. The camera parked on the other side of the room, but that also plays well into other aspects of it where he does the kind of big acrobatic stuff, leaping over walls, swinging from things. It's really him doing it. You're really seeing it. And, and that kind of thing, like where where it's not about film trickery, it's about like showing real big action is pretty cool to see, I think.
And also, I was going to say real fast regarding the silence, just like radio and the way that television ate radio's lunch, and it was a shame. Silence really, after a while, maybe not 1920, but certainly the examples of Fairbanks' athleticism is amazing. When you watch certain silence, and maybe Don Juan is a good example, or no, Don Juan you said was a talkie, but Iron Mask might be.
Yeah.
In terms of, they really were coming on their own, and really, when you watch some of the great silence, they really are powerful. And then talkies came, and because of the limited technology of talkies, it really kind of screwed movies in a lot of ways for a couple years until they really got their rhythm back.
Yeah, and it definitely did that to Douglas Fairbanks' career, because it wasn't like he was incapable of it, but he just didn't have the charisma, didn't come through. And he's kind of a doughy little guy, like he's not like, he's not a leading man in the way that you came to think of it in the 30s, I think. And
one thing I like about go ahead, Gabe. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
One thing that's remarkable when you see that film is unlike perhaps the stars of today or even a few decades ago, Douglas Fairbanks doesn't mind letting the audience know that he's short or shorter than his adversaries.
Yeah, that's a great
and
point.
he uses it to great effect. He's much more nimble and stuff. But you don't see action heroes who are unabashedly short.
Yeah, because if Jean-Claude Van Damme is in something, they cast a bunch of short people around him so that he or he stands on an apple box or whatever. But he has this kind of weird. I think it's partly comes out of the fact that he was a kind of comedic actor before then, and it didn't have the kind of and maybe this. And we're sort of defining this idea of the kind of action adventure hero at the time. And I think that he, in this movie in particular, like as in all of these Zorro things, a lot of it is about, him playing, Don Diego, and as a kind of, he's kind of like in this particular one, he more than being the kind of foppish character, as they used to say. He's a little bit more of a nerd. Like he does little like tricks with the handkerchiefs to try to entertain people and stuff like that, and just comes off kind of irritating to everybody. And so like, and the contrast that, and then obviously the contrast with the Zorro version, which is a big
Zorro
thing.
didn't do any magic tricks.
And not well, he does some. But just one other thing I want to say about Mark of Zorro that was weirdly refreshing to me, because we think about this stuff in terms of superheroes, right? Is that the end of the Mark of Zorro is him revealing that he was Zorro, right? And him using that as leverage to get people on his side, to convince the army to join with him and rise up against the bad guys, right? And it's not an ongoing story. It's a single story, which is nothing like we think about superheroes now.
And we should say, to encapsulate the general plot of Zorro, this is California when it was still under I don't even know, was it American territory?
Spanish.
Yeah.
It was Spanish territory, yeah. And the rich lords of the land really kind of ruled, and they ruled under the alcalde, who was kind of the mayor of the territory. Taxes were too high, the poor were oppressed, and Don Diego Vega, a man whose father was a good lord and that treated his workers well, has been
usurped.
Usurped. His power was usurped, and really the fat cats have taken over, and they're treating all the peasants really poorly. So Diego creates a persona for himself. Zorro is Spanish for the fox.
Yeah. And
he adopts this mask and starts kind of in a very Robin Hood sort of way, grabs taxes that are, collected by the alcalde's men, and redistributes them among the people, and it just starts this entire movement within the people of Zorro will save us and is this, champion of the people. And it's a great story that's been told time and time again. The Banderas movies, obviously, in the modern age. The first one I love.
First one's
because
great.
Hopkins as an aging Zorro, I thought was really, really good, and he had the gravitas, and it just worked for a legacy passing film. The first and second one, I wasn't as crazy about, I'll admit.
I've never seen that one.
I've never seen the second one.
So, what about? I mean, so did anybody else see the 1940 movie, the Ruben Mamoulian movie?
I of course watched it because it's directed by Ruben Mamoulian, and
he's good though. Like, there's a reason to watch a Ruben Mamoulian movie.
It's interesting because I felt like, and I know Tyrone Power and Linda Darnell were like, the box office heat there for a bit, and but she gets like. I feel like she gets a lot more attention than the other Zorro actresses get after that. Like, she kind of commands a bit of the screen for a while, and she's great. So
that movie top to bottom. I mean, Basil Rathbone as
Rathbone's perfect. I mean,
and we know because
we're a Spanish accent going in this, but it's especially what's his name? Who talks like this? Eugene Pallette.
Eugene Pallette, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I cracked up when I saw that he was the friar. I was like, what? Who cast him for
think
this?
the boy who I raised to raise a sword is now a muffin, or whatever he calls him.
Oh, yeah. Martini.
Wasn't he just playing a friar in a movie in Robin Hood a year earlier?
Don't you think, in general, this Marcus Zorro in 1940 really was drifting off the success of Robin Hood?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it kind of resurged into adventure movies. Absolutely. Yeah.
I like that Martini shows up as a guy trying to sell him a rooster who'd just been in a cockfight, and they're talking about how bloody the cockfight was and everything. It was like, that was really good.
It's also, I think that of all the movies that I've watched for this, and this is we're talking a lot about Ruben Mamoulian, but it is because of him. Like, it's also fun to say Ruben Mamoulian, but it's the best crafted of these movies. Like, it's beautifully photographed. It's interestingly told and well made, and like especially going from reading the book, going from the silent one to the 1941. Like, there's a lot of late 30s, early 40s, screenwriting craft that's coming in here, where they're making adjustments and making conflicts more interesting, and like teasing what's going on at the beginning of it in a way that is less so in the book, less so earlier. Like, I think it was an interesting kind of just storytelling thing to like go through these movies and see the different ways people approach this very basic structure.
The 1940 one, as you always say, doesn't have a lot of shoe leather. They move really fast through it. And it was very modern in that sense, the way it, like, a lot of kids watching movies get fed up with like how long it takes to get to something. Now, he's Zorro pretty fast.
Yeah.
But back then they also don't bother with like wondering how he got the idea. He doesn't see a fox fly into his window or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
He just suddenly Zorro, and also he's experimenting with his mask. Like, the first time he's wearing a bandit mask, and then he does a different version. He finally ends up with the normal Zorro mask.
Right, but I like that. I think it's cool. It's I mean, I liked that kind of even though I do kind of feel like I don't know if any of these have the greatest. Like, I still sit here thinking, like, how would I introduce Zorro? And it's not going to be like a big wide shot of a guy riding through town, right? Like, I still feel like none of these movies have like the greatest Zorro introduction shot, but but I do like that kind of thing of, oh, he hasn't figured it all out yet, like he's he's basically acting like a bandit the first time we see him in that movie. He's robbing the people in the thing. Like, he's just taking their money, at gunpoint, right? I think. I love the. I'm sorry. I love the notices that he leaves Yeah.
That, to kind of declare his interest and stuff. And just that wonderful idea of the Greek chorus of the people, Zorro, who is this Zorro?
Yeah.
And they're all just kind of murmuring the name Zorro and stuff. And also Rathbone in Mark of Zorro. And you guys know, because we're all Hollywood nerds and stuff. For people who may not know, Rathbone was the best swordsman of actors in Hollywood. And, he fought Errol Flynn in his swashbuckling movies, fought Ty Power in this movie, even in the 50s. And it really is one of my favorite things that he did, The Court Jester, the Danny Kaye movie. Mm-hmm. And there's like one semi-serious sword fight of Rathbone and Danny Kaye, and not just clowning around. And it's just great to see Rathbone, even 15 years after the Mark of Zorro, he's still got it.
Yeah, he's great. That sword fighting stuff with him is great. And like, especially when, if you're not looking at it as a kind of, oh, this is an old movie and people are doing whatever, like he's doing it in the shots, right? Like, and there are reverses where it's not Tyrone Power, but Rathbone is going at it, right? Yeah. And then, and then on the Tyrone Power side, he'll do a certain amount too, which is, which still comes off really well, but it feels like they're really selling it all the time. It doesn't feel like it never, it's skillfully done. It doesn't have that kind of, forgive me, but Star Trek sort of thing where we drop back to the other side of the room and hope nobody notices that they aren't them anymore, Mm-hmm. Like it's really well crafted in that way.
The music too. I mean, the score is incredible and so good that in the 70s, in 74, there's a TV movie. I showed you the picture of it, of Langella as Zorro.
Oh,
and
man.
and they use the original soundtrack. I mean, it's
really?
It's
because I didn't get to that. I didn't get to the TV movie.
I wish you had, because they pretty much try to remake the 1941 shot for shot.
Yes,
but as if you only had the skill of a lunch pail TV director,
right?
And you had the world's skinniest 35-year-old in Frank Langella with a moppy head thing on, and didn't spend more than 5 minutes to make the mask. Oh God, it's so painful.
I maybe because I saw it when I was 10 years old, and maybe I still have this love for it. But
all Frank Langella cares about is doing the fop part.
Yeah.
So he
does it well.
It up super hard. He's just like, and he's a lot like young Malkovich in that, and the way he's doing everything, and he does it so hard it gets on your nerves. Like you can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well,
the way you can enjoy all the others doing it,
I think his voice though, when he's Zorro, is so commanding. And also this is 4 or 5 years before Dracula.
Yeah, that's
I think it's kind of interesting that he hits some touchstone characters early in his film career.
I do think we see just how important small choices are in style. If you want to bring up that picture of Langella again, so most of the Zorro masks, they end above the nose, and it's perfect, and it's stylish, and it's like people who've never seen the Zorro thing, they still know Zorro just for that mask. For some reason, covering up the entire nose, now it looks goofy. And maybe
it's also because it looks like somebody ran in and just like pulled his mask down over his face and like just to fuck with him. I mean, like I'm sorry, John. It's not like it does. There is a little bit of dorkiness about it.
The only thing the 74 movie has going for it is it's a TV movie. It was a pilot, and they were going to do a TV show like the 50s TV show, except but lame. And the only thing it had going for it is Ricardo Montalban.
Oh yeah,
I was going to say,
of course, Ricardo Montalban's going to be good, but he's so good that like you just stare at him when he's out there, So
yeah, this is going to happen though, like
he should have been.
Yeah,
Vodka Carlo is in it. Lily Munster is in it,
and it has,
and it has this rogues gallery of TV character actors that you've seen a million times. Again, I get it, and I don't. Again, you guys, I'm not going to disagree.
You should watch it, Gabe, because they of course, and actually they did it in the 60s, the 50s TV show. They shoot it out at that ranch way out in the valley, like where that had the little circle where they shoot every movie.
Yeah. Okay.
And Yeah, and as soon as you see like the beams in the building, you know where they are, and you're like, "Oh, I've been out here before," and it's kind of fun for that. But
that's cool.
And also, we're kind of jumping around time wise, but going back to the 40s, Republic had a field day with the Zorro character and made a few Republic serials, the cliffhangers about Zorro. There was Zorro's Fighting Legion, which
that's the first one, right? I mean, that's the one where they kind of brought back Zorro,
the Golden God.
I remember it was like it's a classic kind of cliffhanger bad guy. Yeah, I think he was called El Dorado, and masked, and then of course his identity is revealed by the end of the serial.
But he used pistols more, didn't he?
I'm sorry.
He used pistols more probably in the Republic.
I was just surprised that there weren't, like, after the 1940s Zorro, I was surprised that there weren't like low budget sequels to it from Fox or whatever. I think that was a Fox movie, and
it was a Fox movie. You're right.
But I guess maybe Fox didn't do that quite as much. But
they did do program movies like the Charlie Chan films. They were the original studio and did a dozen Chan movies.
Yeah, you're right. That kind of thing. I was surprised there weren't kind of like the B unit didn't make a whole bunch of Zorro movies starring Tom Neal or something. Like somebody just kind of like you would go, all right, I don't know, but
sure,
sorry, I was watching The Flying Tigers this morning, and Tom Neal from Detour was in it.
Republic is a fascinating studio, and we really could even do someday a Republic story, Scene Missing, just about that studio, because it was created when they decided a bunch of the Poverty Row, really low budget studios all merged together, and they would occasionally try to be an A-list studio. And of course, John, you mentioned the Flying Tigers. John Wayne was one of their big meal tickets post Stagecoach, and a lot of his movies from the 40s were Republic 40s. Fighting Kentuckians with Oliver Hardy is a great example of that. But their bread and butter was still the serials. And then even later on, and I kind of love that Clayton Moore, before becoming the Lone Ranger, did The Ghost of Zorro. And that's an interesting one. You can't miss that voice. My God. I mean, he couldn't help it. And of course, again, no Spanish accent for Clayton Moore.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that kind of thing, though, isn't like should we talk about the Disney show? Like
the Disney show is great.
Yeah.
It's one of the best Zorro adaptations, and truly, Guy Williams. My God, look at that guy.
Yeah.
Look at that guy. I mean, my God, central cast
guy.
Yeah, aptly named, and tremendous Don Diego. Tremendous Zorro.
Yeah.
And that show, God, I remember when the Disney Channel first came to cable.
That's how
they very smartly immediately put the Zorro show on. And now those are color photos, but the show is black and white.
Yeah.
And Jesus, man. I mean, truly, I think the best Zorro since Tyrone Power, and then he exceeded it, even though it was an ongoing show. I think it's ridiculously entertaining. It's on the Disney stream.
Yeah, Disney Plus. It is. Yeah, and I rewatched. I'd seen episodes of it when I was younger, but not for a long time. I rewatched like the first 3 episodes of it. It's great. He's fun. Like it's and it's pretty well made too for a thing that could a lot of those shows from the era, not necessarily.
I'm forgetting the actor who's his mute sidekick in that.
Oh, right.
Bernardo.
Yeah,
he's Bernardo. Like you always have to have Bernardo gets mute in different ways and different versions of the things.
Well,
but
it's Batman synergy of a manservant that really is your extra hands when you need it, which I also love, and also the cave and Tornado, his horse and everything. I mean, there's a lot of Batman trappings in Zorro, and obviously, and of course. Frank Miller rewrote the origin of Batman that he was coming out of the Mark of Zorro.
Right.
When
that came from Frank Miller? I thought that was an earlier thing than that. I didn't know.
I thought it was Batman Year One or Dark Knight Returns. I forget which one.
Maybe. I don't know.
This is why it's important to keep the Zorro story alive, because every time they retell Batman's origin, and they often do, we need to have a Zorro movie be out 30 years before.
Right.
Yeah, just
right.
like America has to be at war for Iron Man to always have a war that he was trapped in the cave.
Right. So which Batman which Batman is Antonio Banderas sequel movie inspiring? I don't know.
I don't know. By the way, James points out, yes, Republic also did the Captain Marvel serial.
There's a great Kino Lorber Blu-ray of that. Yeah,
there's a what?
There's a great Kino Lorber Blu-ray of the Captain, The Adventures of Captain Marvel is its Christian name. You can find that. That's one of the Republic serials that are pretty easy to find, just because Kino, you can just buy it from there. And they did a great job. There's a lot of commentaries, and it's technically the first live action comic book adaptation, I think.
Oh, really?
That's right. Yeah. Predated Superman. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And they made Spy Smasher because Captain Marvel did so well. And they do like, all right, what else can we get from Fawcett? And they got Spy Smasher. Yeah. Spy Smasher is fantastic too.
I've not seen that, but I remember watching the Captain Marvel one like when I was a teenager and it was like a lot more brutal than I expected.
Like a machine gun and machine guns.
That's the part that I remembered. Like where, he like just there's like a like a heavy machine gun, and he like just turns around like mows guys down with it and shit.
And when he throws people off a building, he looks over and watches to make sure they hit. It was the neat thing about the I know we digressed into Captain Marvel, but the Lydecker brothers did the effects for it, and they did the forced perspective stuff with like a little dummy about this big, and it looks amazing. You're like, wow, that still looks good when you watch it.
Yeah.
No, they really figured out on the shoestring how to do a lot of amazing stunts. G. Corojo says Miller chose Zorro because he had heard that Bob Kane was influenced by Zorro when he created Batman. And James points out that maybe the Batman movie, the Robert Pattinson movie, had Bruce and his family coming out of the Banderas film.
That's probably true. They cut that part out. That's why they didn't tell the whole origin in that movie, because they're just like, we don't want to take everybody out of it with this. And that's in the world. That's how it works.
But while we're talking about the Mask of Zorro, which was the first of the Banderas films, James points out that he thought it was odd to have an older Zorro train a newer one in the Banderas film. Why not just have Banderas be Zorro? It's not a flaw. I thought it was odd. I thought it was excellent. And he also says the Anthony Hopkins Zorro having his wife killed and his daughter, Catherine Zeta-Jones, kidnapped and to be raised by his nemesis is one of the darker plots in an adventure film. Again, I think Mask of Zorro is a great film.
They also have the weird thing where his brother...
What you always do.
If I'm remembering it right, his brother is killed and the guy saves his head in a jar of wine?
Or something like that. Yeah,
and he makes him drink the head wine? And I'm like, what? I remember in the theater thinking, what the hell is this?
It's great... The guy who raised Zorro and his brother, it's... LQ. Oh, what was his name?
Jones.
LQ Jones.
Yeah,
outstanding.
Yeah, he was a nutty guy too. Like I remember seeing him at he did a Q&A at the Egyptian one time, like
really
15 years ago or something, 20 years ago probably, and he was just like, one of these guys who just like, he took the mic and he gets up in the audience and he's telling these crazy stories, and he was a very, and he'd come up in the, around, all the classic people making Westerns and stuff. And then, he ended up like, he directed that movie, A Boy and His Dog.
I didn't realize he directed
that. Based on the Harlan Ellison thing, and actually, I watched a little bit of this Banderas one. I didn't get all the way through it, but I was very excited to see LQ Jones. There have two. There are. I don't think there's nothing too dark about, as far as I'm concerned, about like having a fucking like, revenge plot in an adventure movie, but it feels like there were like 4 revenge plots in that movie. Like like everybody's got a revenge story of some kind.
Everyone needs motivation.
Sure. Yeah. Well, maybe not if you do it the way this guy's talking about and don't have multiple Zorros and whatever and all that stuff. I don't know. It's fine. Like I don't mind that legacy thing. I think it's kind of neat.
Yeah, it had that Batman Beyond kind of vibe where old Zorro is training a young guy to do what he can't do. Although for being a guy that obviously had some sort of leg injury or whatever, seems incredibly capable of being a senior citizen Zorro still. And I love that when he's training him early and Banderas is trying to show his sword skills when he has none, and all Anthony Hopkins does is with a flick of a wrist just disarms him and grabs the sword out of the air, and he's just like, all right, now let's quit fucking around. Very Bruce Wayne. Very Bruce Wayne.
Martin Campbell can be good. Like, like he's a real, he's like a shooter, but like if he has good material, he can make it. He made Casino Royale. I think that's a great movie.
And GoldenEye.
And Green Lantern. Oh, wait.
Winners.
Oh, well.
But like I said, doesn't have good material, can't necessarily make a good movie, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Now, Alan DeLeon and this 75 Zorro, again, I saw it when I was 10 years old. So, and I saw it on like a CBS movie of the, Wednesday night at the movies. And I found it interesting because I had seen Mark of Zorro by then, and it really was a sequel story where Don Diego becomes the alcalde.
Yeah.
And he's still Zorro, but he has to kind of, now his civilian identity is very different, and he has to be careful because he's still surrounded by a lot of corrupt other lords of the land and stuff. And it's a French movie. I saw it dubbed in English. Again, you can watch it on YouTube.
I think it's an Italian movie, though, isn't it?
Like,
it's Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but
shot in Spain.
Yes, like many are. But the fact that it's dubbed into English is marginal for an Italian movie because movies of this era, they didn't record sync sound. They would just shoot anybody speaking whatever the fuck language they spoke and dub it all in for whatever country later. So it's not like you're seeing a lesser version of it, seeing it dubbed.
Well, this is the time period. I remember this when I was a little kid. The only thing that feels weird about this movie is that Oliver Reed somehow is not in it.
Sure.
It's that period where they got into, they got into the period swashbuckling adventure stuff. And so you had, again, the Musketeers and Man in the Iron Mask and Royal Flash and, with the Flashman novel with Malcolm McDowell and also with Oliver Reed. And it just seemed to me like Oliver Reed was going to be in every movie I was watching.
Because it was the international co-production era, right? Like where there was foreign money that they would package with stars from different, a European star and somebody from England and some, and that's what the Richard Lester Three Musketeers and all those things were like packaged in a way,
It looks amazing, and of course it helps that I watched the Langella TV movie and then I watched this and I was like, oh my God, I was like, my eyes were thirsty, like please give me. And of course they've got all of Andalusia, all this territory and these great sets that are real places to shoot in. So it just looks amazing.
Yeah.
And DeLon is great. He's a really good. Yeah. He's one of the ones who do the foppish thing that it's actually kind of funny. Mm-hmm. He's pretty funny. And then he's appropriately savage when he's Zorro. So I thought he was great. But of course they dropped the whole California angle. They just make up Nueva
Argona, I think.
Something. Or something like, here's where it is, this somewhere land and everything, and the whole California aspect of it's all gone. But
I mean, I thought the movie is I think it has actually some great stuff in it. It's really tonally all over the place. Like the comedy doesn't fit with the other stuff, and there's a look, I always love a dog in a movie.
I was gonna say he gave him a dog.
but this dog.
They gave him a dog, they gave him a Prussian. And to me, the thing that holds this movie back is that god awful, terrible theme song. The
song.
The song's
amazing.
It's so bad. It's so 70s. It just kills me.
It's
an earworm that you cannot get rid of because it's been in my head for 50 years.
Okay, so since it's in all of our heads, let's all sing it together right now. Okay.
I'm afraid I will. Every time he goes into action, and if it's an action scene longer than 5 minutes, they're going to play it, and it just.
I know, and it's too bad because the action is one of the best parts in this.
Really nice.
It's obviously probably shot by somebody who's not the director, and because it doesn't. The action sequences don't really feel like the rest of the movie.
Wasn't it the other guy who, besides Leone, was the big spaghetti western guy? Now I can't remember his name.
Leone. Well, beyond Leone.
Besides Leone.
I don't know. I don't know this stuff quite.
I don't know because I primarily only watched Leone's spaghetti western.
Yeah, so, he only made a couple of movies.
So. And that era fascinates me. And there's a great, and I think we've kind of tangentially talked about it before. Not a western documentary, but the Euro crime documentary about Italian crime movies. Mm-hmm. And I do love this period of international productions and everybody speaking their language and then it being dubbed in German and Swedish and all the necessary languages for it to be distributed internationally and stuff. I do love those productions. I think they're very interesting.
Zorro's dog assassin is behind Hardman.
Yeah. I'll show you a secret passage.
Yeah.
Here,
Corbucci, is that who we're thinking of?
Yeah, he did the Django movies.
It's not him, but that's
not who directed this. I don't know the guy who directed this, but I feel it does feel like they had a action
Duccio Tattari, who co-wrote one of the Leone movies.
Okay, interesting, but. The thing, we've undersold the best part of this movie, which for me was the 10-minute sword fight at the end, which I think was
the final
pretty great. And it also kind of in ways that the other movies doesn't build to a point where he reveals who he is at the very last moment in a way that I thought was cool.
Yeah,
I so agree.
They have their cake and eat it too because he reveals himself up on top of the tower.
Yeah,
so everyone down below can't see him.
Right.
And they do the I Am Spartacus bit where all the kids and everybody's wearing Zorro hats, like the villagers are all helping Zorro. Like he's that next to the last scene or whatever. Zorro's actually not doing anything. It's everybody on his behalf. Joaquin, who is the Bernardo in this movie, and all the and there's always got to be your friar who gets tortured or killed. In this case, he gets killed, so that Zorro can finally kill again. And
could we consider the Danny Kaye film, The Court Jester, kind of a backdoor Zorro movie? Because the great Avenger in that movie is the Fox. And they, they mistake Danny Kaye to be the Fox, and he is just a bumbling jester. But there are definitely allusions visually, and I don't know if it was. I know Kaye had a contract for a long time with MGM. I don't know if that was a problem. Really, I don't even know, Gabe, and I don't know if you even investigated regarding the original book or the pulp and all the subsequent movies afterwards. I know now there is a corporation that has the trademark and is an official Zorro company. And really, in beyond the Banderas movies, we had a telenovela series in the 2000s that was a modern Zorro on a motorcycle. Like I said, we had last year's Amazon series that was foreign produced, but a credible Zorro story and everything. But yeah, I don't know if during the 30s or 40s and stuff, if it was the Wild West and anybody could make a Zorro movie.
It's a good question, but I can't imagine. If the book is from 1919 or whatever, I can't. I imagine that it was something that they were in control of. I think there would have been more stuff and more kind of dodgy stuff if they weren't. You wouldn't have gone. There would have been, Poverty Row knockoff movies in, after the 1940 movie, if it was in the public domain.
Okay, but we did have Republic taking over for Fox.
But that was years later, and they clearly, I think they probably got the rights to it.
Maybe okay.
No, I think they probably did. But I don't know this though. It is a good question whether at some point in there Zorro, fell into some quasi public domain.
I do know whoever had the rights in the 50s with Disney it was a money issue because the show was a massive hit for ABC and for Disney. And this is literally the beginnings of Disney in television when the Disneyland show was the Wonderful World of Disney prior to it being called that. And no, it was a massive hit. And then all of a sudden, and I think it was money because even Disney even made a lot of Zorro merchandise that I've seen over the years and stuff. And just all of a sudden, nope, that's it. We're done. And, you know, I don't know if Dr. Sin was next.
And Guy Williams goes into space and like,
Guy Williams is better as Zorro than it's a better part for him than Lost in Space guy.
He's a little like Reeves as Clark Kent in that, like, this guy's obviously Superman because he's the big smiling guy.
Yeah.
Well, so much so, you guys know the end of Guy Williams' life story, right? Juan Perón of Argentina, the dictator of Argentina.
I knew he was a big
Zorro was massive in Argentina, so much so they invited him to live there, and he retired there, had a condo that was essentially paid for by the government, and basically lived as a patron citizen of Argentina, and was just beloved till the end of his life down in Argentina. He would come up every
favorite actors could end like that. Yeah.
And especially after, Lost in Space became the Dr. Smith, Will Robinson, and the Robot Show, and everybody else was just there. And I love Billy Mummy talks about it, and he says Williams never resented it, was never lousy about it. It's like, hey man, they're paying me a decent salary. Fine, I'll only be in 10 scenes. As opposed to everybody, the three main people that they were focusing on.
He probably did the Fred McMurray thing of shooting all his stuff in 2 weeks and then pissed off to wherever,
back to the Hacienda in Argentina.
Yeah.
So, Chicorojo, didn't Sean Murphy have to get permission from a company to make his Zorro Man of the Dead comic, the one that was on Kickstarter? Yeah, absolutely. No, there is a company now that controls it. And people also were mentioning, and James Bunt being one of them, he hopes there's time for some love for Alex Toth's Zorro. Absolutely, man.
That's based on the Disney show, yeah.
Yeah, I think we need Jeff to come back in order to talk about Alex Toth. That actually, I mean, I think I had seen episodes of the show, of the Disney show when I was a kid, but I know it better through the Alex Toth comics just because those comics, especially like in my early days of doing storyboards, that one, would sat on my desk. Like so much of my inspiration.
Hold up, Alex. This is no way to see it, but Mike Toth was born to draw this feature.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly some of the consistently. It's a rare thing where you're getting a consistent body of work from Toth.
He does a fantastic Sergeant Garcia.
Yeah,
yes, he does.
He clearly enjoys drawing him.
But also, and rewatching some episodes of the TV show, I'm like sitting there going, you know what? It's that these people look like Alex Toth drawings, right?
They do.
Like they're made to be drawn by him.
It's hard to hold. Yeah, no. Well, Toth drew things so much like a Disney production, and it all hits that vibe of 50s California that he's very much part of at the time. And
the guy who played Sergeant Garcia for Sitcom Nerds, you might remember an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show where they go to a friend's resort. And Rob plays tennis with the comedian, and he injures him. So everybody has to kind of pitch in and do a variety show for the entertainment for the resort. And the guy who runs the resort is the actor who played Sergeant Garcia, but he's all slicked back, no mustache. And he and Dick Van Dyke at the end of the show do a Laurel and Hardy parody, and he's right.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yes. And that was Garcia. That was Sergeant Garcia, and it was after the Disney show. So
yeah. The one thing Jeff mentioning the California of it all, like the one thing about the 1975 movie that it didn't bother me. It's fine, but like one thing that's nice about the 1920 movie, the 40 one, like all these things, they're running around they're on horses, they're running around in California, and it's actually supposed to be California. 99% of the time, you're watching these old movies, and you're seeing Calabasas, and it's supposed to be Bavaria or something, right? Like it's never California. So like the fact that the movies are actually set in California is like especially I've lived here too long, and like and it's just nice to see like those kind of rolling hills that are about to catch on fire be someplace that they're supposed to be, and not some fake out thing.
They work in the tar pits is a plot point in one of them.
Oh,
they have guys going to the tar pits to pick up.
I didn't remember that. That's fantastic.
I don't know if you see this. Toth just drew Lee Van Cleef into the story.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Like, outstanding. Yeah.
Like when you see other shots of the guy, I can't figure out how the whole thing.
Has there ever been a documentary about the Fox Ranch where a lot of the westerns were obviously shot, and even I think MASH even was shot in that kind of brush?
Yeah. What's now it's now Malibu Creek State Park. Yeah. Not that I know of. I mean, certainly it's still there, and there are things that and they're and you can see you can go to the places where they shot some of this stuff. Sure.
I mean, I know Century City,
but that was the back lot. I mean, this is out in Malibu, like it's a long way away. Yeah.
No, and truly I love hearing about westerns of the 40s and 50s. And Mitchum got his film start in Hopalong Cassidy movies, and he's like, those were some of the best like film jobs I ever had. He said we were outdoors all day. He was just this leaning into Mitchum's simple man persona, and he said they gave us a great box lunch and we all hung out, and Willie Boyd was an amazing guy. Hopalong, and he's just like, oh, it's the best time of my life, and that's where I got my great training. And it was in those B westerns. It's funny too. We're talking when the night before Deadpool Wolverine opens up, and it's the last vestige of the Fox X universe and everything. This movie,
I wouldn't have known that had you just not told me now.
Really? So is Hugh Jackman in this one?
Yeah,
I believe he is. Yes. We've lamented it before when we do Scene Missing. Fox's amazing film history.
I worked on the last real Fox movie, Ford versus Ferrari. Absolutely. I worked at Fox was one of the studios that I worked at the most over the course of my career when it existed.
Gabe, that's why I brought it up. Movie. Well, and again, you would always talk in great love and detail about their archives.
Yeah, they had an archive. And which I went to, and still had a certain. I mean, I don't know what's like right now because I haven't been over there in a little while. But but they still had a New York street. They still had the sense of it being a lot. Maybe not, Paramount more so. Paramount is the one that still feels like it's it's the 20s or whatever too. So. Yeah. But Fox, was its own thing, and it is, and certainly it's sad to me that it's just subsumed into Disney. And I don't think that, and it is true that this stuff is, that they're mining the Fox stuff for this Deadpool movie, but I don't think it has anything to do with Fox. It's like it's a walking corpse. Oh, sorry.
No, I get it. I literally this morning I was watching a biography of Louis B. Mayer, and I didn't know that Skank, when Arthur Lowe was the original owner of MGM, and really Mayer was an employee of MGM. When Lowe died and Nicholas Skank took over, he was plotting a power move with William Fox for Fox to buy MGM and oust Mayer. And the only thing that stopped it was the stock market crash in 29.
Oh yeah.
And then Fox couldn't come through with the money to make the merger happen, and it went in the dust. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And again, I was telling you, Gabe, last month, Turner was showing a lot of the classic Fox movies and a lot of the noir stuff. They showed Laura. They showed all about Eve. Mm-hmm. Just wonderful Fox movies. And again, Mark of Zorro is another kind of classic, right in the heart of their golden age of Hollywood prime.
The other thing I always think about the Fox lot is that they had big murals of the Oxbow incident or the 7-year itch, or like they had they had a kind of, they were advertising the history of the of the lot, like movies mattered and like the history of movies mattered, and it doesn't anymore, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen to the Paramount lot. With this deal, this current deal, most of this stuff is going away. I think movies are going away to a large extent.
I agree.
But
yeah, well, again, and we're talking, as we said, as Comic-Con is going on, it's very interesting, and I wonder what they're pushing and where, because you're right, Gabe. I think viewing habits are changing dramatically.
Well, the movie business also kind of, killed
that's what
itself. It kind of committed suicide.
They don't know what to make anymore.
I don't think that's why. I don't think it's because they don't know what to make exactly. That is a little bit why. But I think structurally, like the choices that they made around streaming, around the pandemic, and then the strikes happening, basically just created a situation where people didn't, movies took themselves out of the scenario in a way.
I still don't get how the writers actually negotiated a better contract than the actors. I didn't see that one.
Well, nobody's working, so it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I guess you have an amazing contract that.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the strikes or the union stuff. I'm not. It's tough.
It's the subject for another show
for me because it's literally horribly impacting my life. But
you're not alone, Gabe, and I know.
I know. Trust me, I live here.
Well, yeah, you live there, exactly, man. But no, even anecdotally, when I talk to everybody that I know, it's nobody knows what the hell's going to happen next. And again, it's because the nature of the business is changing.
But who knows though? We don't know, and it's not, the movie industry isn't as bad as the comic book industry, which is on the death's door every 2 years for the last 100 or whatever. But there is still this kind of cycle. Obviously there's the late 60s, early 70s thing where big bloated movies became unpopular and people aren't going to watch movies anymore. It was like in the early 50s as well. There was a sense that the movie business was going away in the early 50s. We don't know how things are going to work out. It does feel like that right now, but it's also felt like that at other times. And, things are different now, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's, look, I'm saying that movies are over, but we don't know. We can't tell the future. No, future is where you and I will spend the rest of our lives.
Thanks, Chris.
Fantastic movie.
Sorry to bring everything to a halt with Criswell.
Well, you're suggesting that the savior of all this would be, the next version, I guess.
Of Ed Wood, of Ed Wood, sure. Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't know, honestly. It's not impossible that there's a world where making, maybe not terrible, very low budget movies, but a world where there's an industry based around making movies that cost a lot less money and appeal to specific groups or whatever. You don't know.
Did you guys watch Hundreds of Beavers?
No, I've heard of it.
It's so it's made by these guys up around Wisconsin and that area, and it kind of uses like just real basic, I don't want to say animation, but it is animation of the sort. In addition to like 5 cheap beaver costumes and some other stuff that they did. But they kind of pull off the thing of like, once you accept the reality of this, it is crazy, James. Once you accept the reality of it, is you realize, oh my God, you can make an entertaining movie, and they went all slapstick with it. You can make an entertaining movie for $500,000.
Sure,
and
it's a silent movie, right?
No. Well, but
or no one speaks.
It's only silent in the sense that they just thought, well, this way you can show it all over the world. I assume it was their reasoning in that, it could have international appeal, but they leaned into the whole slapstick and just those kind of stunts and things like that. And I like to think Steve Lieber had read an article with the director, and he's just talking about humor. And so he told me this bit about this. His thing was he thought slapstick was bigger, say back in the 30s and 40s, because everybody had real jobs where they got knocked around when something happened. and nowadays all humor is derived from this guy at work is really annoying.
This is not the worst.
I think he's actually onto something here with this, because that does seem to be
since AI is going to take away all our jobs, we'll have to find jobs where we get hit in the head more often, and maybe it'll all come back.
Well, and I was going to say too, a less extreme version than the Beaver movie are the films of A24 and Blumhouse.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, nice Beaver. No, A24 and Blumhouse has managed to make profitable movies on much smaller budgets with clever writing and again, smart, I think, cost-cutting moves to make still effective movies. And
now they're getting away from that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, they think that they can expand past that, and that they.
And it's like, no, you're doing great with this. Keep going.
Yeah, but we'll see. That certainly they don't need to be the people who continue to do stuff. Like, people see opportunity and they'll exploit it. Hopefully,
Yeah. Have somebody who'll edit Ari Aster and get it down to size or something.
So, anyways, Zorro.
Yes. Again, a lot of these movies that we've discussed are on YouTube and available. There's even at least one Guy Williams Disney Zorro episode that you can find on YouTube.
Few. You can watch a lot of them.
I did.
And then Donatello on the old Zorro show.
What's that?
Before her beach movie days. Yes, she was on there.
Oh,
that figures, because she was in the Mickey Mouse Club. Right before that, I guess.
Right. Well, no, that's it. It was the club, then the Zorro stuff, then the beach movies.
Yeah, I was watching. What's it called? How to Stuff a Wild Bikini the other
Classic.
You're watching
it. Yeah, and here's the thing. Not a great movie, but still, even in beach
directed
movie
a lot
terms,
of those. Directed a lot of those. William Asher.
Yeah, this was a William Asher. Yeah.
And he's the Bewitched director and everything. Yeah. So I had
I'm going to recommend it, though. I'm going to recommend this.
Fun.
How to Stuff a Wild Bikini. Is that it? Like,
sure.
I feel like it's a later one. It's Frankie is gone. He's like on a he's like in the army or something.
Yes.
And Ned has to fend off the Dobie Gillis guy. Like,
is Tommy Kirk in that one?
No. Dwayne Hickman. No, Dwayne Hickman. And Mickey Rooney is in it. And,
of course.
Buster Keaton is in it. But we can be sad about that. It's everybody's like in their 30s. Clearly, I believe that, I don't know why I'm hijacking this, but I think that Annette Funicello is possibly pregnant at the time because she's never in a bikini, and she's literally on the beach fully dressed reading a book at the beginning of it. It's a puzzling movie. There's enough puzzling, baffling things in it that I'm going to recommend.
Okay,
those beach movies are great because there's a lot of great music performances. Dick Dale is in at least one, if not more, of those movies. Yeah. Little Stevie Wonder, when he was still 13-year-old little Stevie Wonder, is one of those movies. But yeah, Rickles is in those. Buddy Hackett's in those movies.
They made one in the 80s with Fishbone in it.
I went and saw that. I saw that in Back to the Beach. I went and saw that in the theater. Pee Wee Herman.
In the 90s, I got to hang out with Frankie Avalon a bit because he was in town doing Tony and Tina's wedding. And I'm like, you got to tell me everything about the beach movies, man. And he said, they were ridiculous and they were shit. But he goes, we had fun. He goes, we had a lot of fun off the set and everything. And that's all he said. But he said they were fun to make. And he goes, they kept making money.
I'm sure they did. They didn't look back to our where we got to this with. Oh, sorry, that made no sense. But like, they didn't spend much money on them, and and they're AIP movies, they're low budget movies, right? So
yes,
like that's who distributed the Corman movies and stuff. So like they're kind of junk that independently made junk, but they made money. That used to be how things could work.
I'll acknowledge James because it is a Zorro subject. And it bums me out, but I do understand why it's not an appropriate movie anymore. And that is George Hamilton's Zorro.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, I forgot about Zorro the Gay Blade. That may be the first Zorro movie I ever saw because I remember it on cable when a lot, like when I was a kid. Like it was just one of those movies they constantly show.
I can't believe I didn't rewatch it. I forgot.
I should have.
It came after Hamilton had his Dracula movie, Love at First Bite.
Love at First Bite.
And it's kind of continued the parody. It obviously leaned into a lot of gay stereotypes, which is unfortunate.
Which is also what most Zorro movies do in one way or another, though, with the way that he's portrayed as not being kind of afraid of women and all that sort of stuff. I mean, to one extent or another, Zorro does that a lot. They're just really leaning into it with that one.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, maybe it's a great movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it since I was a little kid.
Ron Liebman is very funny in it as the Alcalde. Very, very funny in it.
Okay.
I do think Hamilton, for what they asked him to do, was very, very funny in it as well.
A little bit of a limited actor, the George Hamilton.
But have you noticed, Gabe, and I think I've told you this before because you don't have Turner Classic Movies.
Yeah.
I think because he's one of the last old Hollywood people, if you want to call him that, because a lot of his career happened in the 60s.
Yeah.
They show a shit ton of George Hamilton movies these days on Turner Classic Movies. And I think because, again, it's him and Eva Marie Saint, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
As far as who's left.
Yeah, right. He's not, I don't think he's terrible. He's one of these kind of guys who just doesn't, he doesn't, he's great in the Evel Knievel movie. He's great in Godfather 3. No.
Awful Knuffle.
I'm glad I didn't have a drink in my hand.
I remember he made a Jewel Thief movie with Joseph Cotton, it's a 60s movie, and
it's
creaky Joe Cotton, but God bless him, he's still Joe Cotton and everything.
You mean Joe Cotton from the Oscar?
Come on, we just talked about that. Absolutely. Oh, good stuff.
All right. I think we talked about Zorro.
I think we did good. What's Jeff looking up before we leave?
I'm just looking at
reading Alex Toth. He just got bored with us. He's reading Alex Toth.
Whoever has the Zorro rights, please put the Toth comics back in print because I just looked up the book on Amazon and the prices will make you plots.
Do you want it? Do you want to buy my copy?
No, I have it somewhere here. I wish I could find it. If I could find it,
because I'll sell it to you for pretty much exactly what they're charging.
Somewhere this is printed black and white. Somewhere I've got the Dell ones too, but deep in the closet. But
the black and white version,
you can still find them in a
look if you
under a table.
No, I don't know if there's anybody out there who's trying to get into making comics or doing any kind of narrative art type stuff. Just find those books because they're just a gold mine of like great decisions about how to tell a story visually, and the black and white ones are beautiful.
And you see Toth pull off clever tricks like you realize like you can read a whole issue and then go back and wait. He never actually drew a horse in this one, but all this horse riding was happening. Right. And he would often draw them from the back. You just see the butt of the horse and a tail flipping up.
Yeah.
And I totally bought it. And then I didn't realize he only drew one little horse in that scene. And I was like, oh, wow.
Well,
I thought he was drawing a bunch of horses.
Getting away with shit is so much of the job of making comics, making films. You're always faking people out. It's
always, if you can get it works the same in movies and comics. If you can get a really memorable shot in there, you can coast a lot because the viewer will hold that in their head and you can.
Yep. And also misdirect people, make them, look at a particular thing so that they're not looking at the other thing that you didn't spend as much time on.
Right.
Which
high def has really hurt when we go back and watch things now. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but
well, but mostly
Chikuro,
80s stuff. It kills 80s stuff. Stuff made
Chikuro
before looks pretty good still.
I'm
sorry, John. We're really digressing.
Chikuro is requesting we next cover the film Hells of Poppin', which I believe isn't that Olsen and Johnson.
Isn't that also really hard to find?
Yeah, I thought that was one that's kind of obscure, but or at least hard to get a hold of. I don't know though.
I don't know. I'm not sure. And also, he says I keep my eyes out for the Toth Hot Wheels cartoon book, the one that had strips from Big Daddy Roth magazines.
Yeah, it's on the shelf over there. Do you want to buy it from me? Because sorry,
it's your least favorite of the Toth, mate.
No, it's good. I like it. It's good.
Find the Hot Wheels for DC Comics that he did.
That's great stuff. Yeah, that particular story. I mean, that may be reprinted. Get if you could find the big those big books that they put out, like those 3 big
Manuel Awad did those books.
Yeah,
and they're really good.
Great stuff.
Funny.
Anyway, Zorro and Alex Toth.
Indeed. So, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our discussion about the Fox and his various iterations. Again, a lot of what we discussed can be found on YouTube, and you may want to check some of that stuff out for free. But it's these are even the Republic serials I think are worth watching and are very interesting. And of course, the original, the Doug Fairbanks Sr. movie, absolutely on YouTube as well.
Yep.
So there you go, everybody. But I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I'm sure we will convene and figure out what our next movie is. It may not be Hells of Poppin', but we'll see.
But it could be that. You never know.
Yep. Thanks for hanging out, Jeff. Ian, as always, a pleasure. Gabe, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.